How can Israel's land operation take place? Things to know about the Gaza Strip with maps. It is only a matter of time before the Israel-Hamas war, which started on October 7, moves to Gaza and turns into an urban war. The Israeli army continues its preparations for the land operation. Hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza were displaced from their homes and had to relocate. Where can the Israeli army launch the operation? And where are the targets? Where will Gaza residents take shelter? Here's what you need to know about Gaza. From the moment the Israel-Hamas war broke out on October 7, a possible ground operation by the Israeli army against the Gaza Strip has been expected. It is estimated that there are currently around 200 Israeli hostages in all of Gaza. Since the beginning of the war, the Israeli army has been calling on Palestinians to leave the north of the Gaza Strip and go south. With this request of Israel, predictions were made that a possible operation would be launched from the north, especially towards Gaza City. So where is the Israeli army pointing when it asks the Palestinians to go south of Gaza? Gaza consists of 5 administrative regions, from north to south: northern Gaza, Gaza City, Deir el-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. Israel's demand is that civilians in northern Gaza and Gaza City go down to the Gaza Valley. It is thought that the Hamas density is higher in the regions above the Gaza Valley. Therefore, it is likely to be the target of a possible Israeli ground operation. Israel's ground operation is expected. Palestinians' escape from the north of Gaza continues. The Israeli army also shared a map of the route it wants the Palestinians to follow. The map shows that residents can go south using Salahaddin Street. Salahaddin Street. It starts from the Erez border gate. However, Israel, although he sent Palestinians to the southern regions for their safety, airstrikes also took place there. Many Palestinians lost their lives in the southern cities of the Gaza Strip, such as Khan Yunis and Rafah. In these attacks, the Israeli army also hit at least 2 convoys that escaped from the possible operation area. Palestinians under Israeli bombardment tell, "I am drinking clean water for the first time in 3 days." A possible ground operation could cause the tragedy in the Gaza Strip to escalate even further. The Gaza Strip, one of the most densely populated areas in the world, is only about 350 square kilometers, but has a population of more than 2 million. Israel's entry into Gaza means an urban war. More than 2,800 Palestinian civilians have lost their lives since October 7th. If a land operation takes place, it is feared that these losses will increase even more. US President Joe Biden also said that it would be a big mistake for the Israeli army to enter the Gaza Strip. Biden will also go to Israel. Red light from Biden to Israel's ground operation. Invasion of Gaza would be a mistake so far. More than 1 million Palestinians have been forced to relocate within Gaza alone. Most of these people are traveling from north to south. Some of these people return to the north after Israeli airstrikes in southern cities and risked a possible land operation. Hamas showed its hostages for the first time. What is the situation of the 200 hostages in Gaza? There are only 2 border crossings open to civilian use in the Gaza Strip. One of them is the Erez border gate, located in the north and under Israeli control. The other is the Rafah border gate in the south, which is under Egyptian control. An agreement was reached between Egypt, the USA, and Israel to open the Rafah border gate. However, the agreement fell apart before the border was even open. With the opening of the border, it would be possible for humanitarian aid to reach the Gaza Strip from Egypt and for Palestinians who want to leave the region to cross into Egypt. On Thursday night, the Israeli army bombed a Greek Orthodox church in Gaza City, where dozens of Palestinian families had taken refuge as they fled deadly airstrikes against civilian targets. At the time this article was written, the number of deaths in the bombardment of the St. Porphyrios Greek Orthodox Church had increased to 8, and dozens of people were reported injured. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, women and children were among those killed in the attack on the church in the Al Zaydan neighborhood of Gaza City. The number of dead and injured is expected to increase as rescue teams continue to pull people out from under the rubble. According to the Wall Street Journal, from Majdi Gilda, who took shelter in the church, approximately 500 people were sheltering in the church campus, 80 of which were in the church council building where the explosion occurred. Dozens of people were in the damaged meeting hall of the church. This is one of the oldest churches in the world. The Orthodox Patriarchate of Jerusalem stated that it condemned the attack in the strongest possible terms and said, "It is a shame that Israel targets churches and institutions, along with the shelters they provide to protect innocent citizens, especially children and women who lost their homes due to airstrikes on residential areas in the last 13 days. It constitutes a war crime." Al Jazeera quoted a survivor of the church bombing as saying, "Where do I go now? There is no place to live." The church bombing came less than 3 days after Israel bombed the Al Arab hospital in Gaza City, killing nearly 500 Palestinians, and us. President Biden embraced Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and expressed his full support for Washington's genocidal war on Gaza. It occurred a day after he announced that he had given. While conflicts on Israel's northern border with Lebanon escalated throughout the day, US military facilities in Syria and Iraq were also attacked. In Israel's airstrikes on Gaza, 33 people near the Rafah border gate with Egypt and 11 family members in a house in Khan Yunis lost their lives. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reported that 18 people died in the attack on the Jabalia camp, which is the largest refugee camp in Gaza and hosts approximately 160,000 people in the north, near the Israeli border. 2 people were killed and dozens injured in an airstrike on a Greek Orthodox church in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has given one of the strongest signals yet that a ground offensive in Gaza is imminent, threatening to cost the lives of tens of thousands of Palestinians. Addressing soldiers of the elite Golani Brigade at a gathering point on the Gaza border, he said, "I am here with Golani soldiers from all over the country. They fought like lions and they will fight like lions. We will win with all our strength," he said. Netanyahu also attended the Security Cabinet meeting. The cabinet must approve the ground operation. Earlier in the day, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who gained notoriety for describing Palestinians as humanoid animals in the early days of Israel's genocidal offensive, told soldiers they would soon see Gaza from the inside. Major General Yaron Finkelman, head of the Israeli Defense Forces IDF Southern Command, said the ground operation would be difficult, long, and intense. The coming escalation of the deadly 12-day offensive on Gaza, which has already claimed the lives of 3,785 Palestinians, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, is taking place with the clear approval of the United States and its European imperialist allies. The latest preparations by Netanyahu and the army for the ground operation come just 24 hours after US President Joseph Biden visited Israel, embraced Netanyahu, and reiterated Washington's unconditional support for the massacre of Gaza's population of 2.3 million. The visit was made after Israel bombed the Al Arab hospital on Tuesday, murdering nearly 500 men, women, and children in cold blood. This attack is a war crime under international law. The Senate passed a resolution affirming Israel's right to self-defense by a 97-0 vote yesterday, underscoring the American political establishment's unanimous support for Israel's war crimes. The resolution also committed Washington to replenish Israel's weapons stockpile so it can continue its attacks as long as it wishes, and to impose tougher sanctions on Iran to combat its support for terror proxies. On Thursday, visitors from major imperialist powers continued to arrive in Israel to sanction the Netanyahu regime's genocidal offensive. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said, "We want you to win," while German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius met with Gallant to pledge Berlin's support. Hamas's aerial bombardment, a brutal act of collective punishment for the mass Palestinian uprising against the Israeli occupation launched on October 7, has already left Gaza in ruins. According to the latest report of the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, 25% of residential buildings in the region were destroyed. 98 houses. 491 people, including 16 healthcare workers on duty, lost their lives in 59 attacks on healthcare facilities, including 17 hospitals and 23 ambulances. The bombings hit 170 educational facilities and caused serious damage to the region's sanitary and water infrastructure. Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a ceasefire in Gaza on Thursday, while announcing plans for an aid convoy from Egypt to bring urgently needed supplies to the region. On Friday, About 2 weeks ago, Israel cut off fuel, water, and electricity to the Gaza Strip and blocked the entry of aid with the support of the Sisi dictatorship in Cairo. A scathing statement issued by two unspecial rapporteurs has clearly warned that Israel's actions in Gaza and the West Bank pose a threat of genocide. Pedro Arroyo Agudo, the unspecial rapporteur on human rights on safe drinking water and sanitation infrastructure, and Francesca Albanese, the special rapporteur on human rights in the Palestinian territories occupied since 1967, stated. The statement also condemned the bombing of El Ali Hospital as "atrocity" in the occupied West Bank. Israeli forces have killed dozens of Palestinians in the past 2 weeks. Yesterday alone, 7 Palestinians and 1 Israeli were reported dead in clashes in a refugee camp. During a raid on the occupied Palestinian town of Turkaram, a 16-year-old boy was shot by soldiers, and Israeli soldiers opened fire and seized an ambulance belonging to the Palestinian Red Crescent. Unspecial rapporteurs concluded, given the statements made by Israeli political leaders and their allies, the military action in Gaza, and the escalation of arrests and killings in the West Bank, there is also a risk of genocide against the Palestinian people. The war is rapidly escalating beyond Gaza. Hamas claimed responsibility for firing 20 rockets into northern Israel on Thursday, along the Lebanese border. Israeli soldiers and Hezbollah fighters also exchanged fire in the afternoon. An IDF spokesman warned that Hezbollah would suffer the consequence of the rocket attacks, suggesting that expanded operations in Lebanon were only a matter of time.